Hello everyone, and welcome to what is a somewhat impromptu Hearts of Iron 4 dev diary. Not in the typical format though, because this is kind of just talking about a patch that should have just come out for HOI4 1.12.5. So the question is, why are we talking about it? We don't often talk about updates. Well, if we jump in here, we can see that the first line of this dev diary says, "Hello there generals. Another update has arrived, and this is a big one, because it releases 1.12.5, but there is more, as we have a plan in the works to release monthly updates for By Blood Alone, so keep your eyes peeled for more information related to that." I think this opening line is really the big point that they want to bring across, is that there is going to be a transition, perhaps for who knows how long, where we're going to see monthly updates for HOI4 to address a lot of community issues we have with the game. So these are probably going to be quality of life changes, or bug patches, or just things that people, the community, yourself included, feel can be improved to make the game even better, as opposed to just generic content updates or minor things on the side. Because of this, I think it's really needed to hammer home that they want you, Paradox I mean, to go on their forums, onto the suggestions forums, the bug reporting forums, because now I think with this more monthly update cycle that they're trying to shift to, it's probably going to be more relevant to have your feedback posted there now. So if there is anything you felt needed to be changed about the game, I guess this is the timeline you want to live in. So the first thing they're talking about in their balance is minor tweaks made to the further railway and infrastructure focuses. They were a bit weak or unchanged in the last iteration. Now I'm sure they say focuses because there is more than one, but we have to switch over to Poland. So here we are in good old Poland, and let's just head over to our focuses, and we'll scroll all over to the left, and let's have a look. Expand the Northern Rail. This is of course an infamous focus that originally for 70 days only gave you a level 1 railway, possibly the worst focus in the game for its time. It now gives you 1 civilian factory and 50 political power, so I'd say a slight upgrade. I mean, the fact that it gives you a civ is definitely helpful, although if I was going to go it, I'd say it could have been brought down to 35 days. It's still a little bit weak, considering on this side of the tree we've got Invest in Eastern Poland, which gives you 4 civs. Actually, it gives you 3 civs and a mill, I stand corrected, but yeah, much more powerful. So I won't be covering everything here, but I do want to bring up what I think are the most important things to talk about. I think that a lot of players had noted or think could be interesting to hear. So the Italian balance of power decisions have been changed from being one-time use to once a year, meaning it should be easier to make actions. Switzerland as a whole has seen a giant collection of nerfs. Their national spirits have been nerfed, including Spirit of Saint Bernard. Their weapons designers have been nerfed, and the popular dictator traits, as well as the made it less likely for countries to accept Swiss demands for territories. Heading back into HOI4, we have Switzerland here, and let's just take a look. So we have the Spirit of Saint Bernard over here, which gives field hospital trickleback and experience loss factor, so I guess that's nerfed down. But most importantly, we have this branch, the New Eidengenossenschaft, which I probably pronounced terribly, which leads to expanding the Confederation. What expanding the Confederation allowed you to do was use your political power to start buying canton states, and this used to cost 50 political power. It now costs 65. It's also much less likely that they're going to want to join you. I think before it was a 40%, maybe a bit more than that, to like 52, but now it's 37 to 62, and it gets less likely in certain states. If I was to give my perspective on this, I don't actually fully like the change in that everything's just been nerfed on a flat basis. I think it would have worked better if it was on kind of a growth system, where effectively you had maybe the first 2 cantons you got were actually more likely to happen than less likely, let's say 60%, and then the next 2 after that were down to 30%, and the next 2 after that were 15%. As a result, you have more of a tactical choice in which your first 2 states you'd like to get are, and then every state after that is more so like luck and RNG, because if it's the case that everything is just very unlikely to happen and massively nerfed, I feel like going down that focus tree path is incentivized, and then it becomes the case of why even have the focus tree path at all if it's too weak to even play. But that's just my 2 cents on the matter. Next up, we have changes to cohesion settings, which was that system in which units on your front line would move around to better fill out where they're needed, and perhaps not necessarily travel from one side of your front line to the other to fill in a single hole if you don't want them to. They're hoping that their new system will not have as much unit clumping for the AI and create much more stable front lines with less relocation. I think the next one could be possibly the highest, most contentious factor of changes that needed to happen, and that's with peace conferences. So their first note is that they've changed the Yolts conference to make it better interact with the new peace conference format. I don't know what that looks like. I guess that's something that multiple different games are going to have to reveal, and we'll see if that comes true. As well as AI peace conference behavior has been changed significantly when taking land for themselves, and I think they're describing a modifier that the further away the land is from that country, it should be less likely for them to want to take that land. The next iterative change they also have is that the AI is now more aware about contested bits and are less likely to go all in on contested bits and realise, hopefully more early on, that if something is contested, not to waste their points in that and go after something else, which maybe will help you as an individual if you're going after something contested, but also maybe stop the AI from, battling itself with another AI to try and get two states. Meanwhile, Australia is taking everything. Maybe that's where that's going. Since this is all written down in patch notes, it's only going to take time to see if this has come to fruition. The final part of the balance tree talks about individual stat changes for different ships and aeroplanes, which I'm sure more technical players can go through, as well as the final line stating a slightly improved fash and neutral approach to beating overseas countries. I'm not sure what that's implying, but you could see that it means Germany's going to be trying to do sea line a bit better. Hard to say. If nothing else, if they were struggling with Norway before, I certainly hope they're not struggling with Norway now. On stability and performance, hopefully players on Macs shouldn't crash, but then again, why are you playing on a Mac? Maybe that's your fault. I couldn't say. In terms of UI, I think there is something interesting to say, that now there is a glowing effect when you can afford a balance of power decision, which is something I noticed myself. Returning to the world of HOI4, we see Italy here, which now has its balance of power system, and there is an orange glow around the UI telling you that there is a decision you can take. We've got Slander the Deuce and all of these praising and ministry decisions to take. So just a small thing to help you have some better understanding of whether there is an action you can take in the balance of power. In terms of modding, we have a added has completed custom achievement trigger and debug custom achievement console command. This one's kind of obscure, but as an outsider who doesn't do too much advanced modding, is this the case that if you had, let's say, a mod like the Fallout mod or the Equestria at War mod, that if you had an in-game achievement, because they have custom achievements, the Fallout mod for example, then having that achievement could actually trigger a separate state of the game to occur. If I was to give you an example, it could be the case that if there was a modded achievement for Caesar to cross Hoover Dam and you did it, and then you went back and played it again and got the same in-game achievement, because of this you could have a custom effect which is like, deja vu, I swear I've crossed this bridge before, or something like that, because the game now recognises that you've done it before and so could give you something interesting as a side effect. Okay, and lastly we come to bug fixes. Bug fixes being quite the longer list of things to go through, but I'm sure we can find some of the more interesting golden nuggets to dissect. Added a variable to whichever nation that cedes Bessarabia to the Soviets so it shows up correctly in news events. Pretty straightforward. Fixed typo in one of the Italo-Ethiopian war events. So they've made the game playable again. We love to see it. Puyi now gets nationalist symbol correctly. I'm not sure how he feels about that, but there we go. Changes to the Italy focus negotiate claims will be bypassed if certain criteria are met, and certain events will also be skipped if the criteria isn't met. Well, the Italian claims I can see here are negotiate Italian claims, and the requirements are to be at peace with the UK and France, which is some pretty reasonable requirements if you're going to be going to a negotiation table with them, lest you end up shooting them from across the room. If Italy declines Germany's offer to assassinate Mussolini, Germany won't be able to ignore that rejection and go ahead with the assassination anyway. I did note that there was some interesting overlap between the focuses for assassinating Mussolini and the Italian player not really getting much of a say in the matter, which kind of, yeah, two focus trees butting heads there, so I think that's hopefully got a good fix. You can no longer use the No Garrison, Kurdish Uprising Annex exploit to remove Kurdish separatism faster than normal. Paradrop orders without enough assigned transport wings now display how many wings are missing on the odd instance with a tooltip. This is something I myself had issue with in I think my Italian game, where I didn't understand why some paradrops weren't happening. I think this is just a user-friendly change which helps explain something that hasn't really been explained due to the air wing rework. Vorarlberg will now be a core of the Holy Roman Empire when formed by Germany. Thank goodness, what would they do without Vorarlberg? And finally, we'll cap this off by saying there's good changes across the board with Switzerland, including focus changes, more bypasses in case things get broken, because I know that the Swiss focus tree has quite a lot of requirements for some of its focuses, as well as hopefully making it slightly easier to avoid some war when it comes to having absolute neutrality. Oh, and you can also steal people's gold. So yeah, that in total should be the core of the update. Not of course a gigantic update, but in the grand scheme of things, having a monthly update with this kind of level of change is a really positive thing, because it means that a lot of the community gripes can be dealt with much faster. And as they say here at the end, if you do discover bugs or suggestions, they want you to please use the forum section. So I hope this has been somewhat informative. I hope that you can take advantage of the new monthly update system. I think it's positive for HOI4, and that's all I think I've got to say. Maybe I can do monthly coverage, depending on the size of the update. I guess we'll see. Anyway, if you enjoyed, feel free to like, feel free to subscribe, and I guess I'll see you when I see you. Bye, 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 bye.